Ladies and gentlemen, welcome on once again for another edition of the Duval Dive. Of course, I am Kyle Nash, the student of the game of Jaguars SI. A whole lot of quality Jag stuff to talk about this week, even though you might think it's quiet. We got a lot of stuff to talk about nonetheless, but I will not do it by myself, especially after the truth he dropped this week on BigCatCountry.com. Bing! My personal champion, Travis D. Holmes. What is going on, sir?
Me? What's going on, y'all, man? Hey.
From Ryan Michaels, former Jaguar Report / Jaguars on SI guy, now working KOA in Denver with Ben Albright and cats like that, getting regular social shout outs, and he's going like, I just stop it. Anyway,
hey man, I had the time, and if you have the time, why not throw some shade at all the national media non-football watchers who claim to be football analysts? Let's do it, man.
I mean, you know, if they're giving you a head ache, what? No. Anyways, I would say that Travis was coming at you, Emmanuel. Anyways, yeah, I'm calling him out. If he was drafted, Brock Purdy. What are we doing here, mate? Anyways,
what are we doing?
Gosh, yeah, we'll get into that later in the show. But before we get too far into that, it's not often that Travis and I find material out there of other people that we just blatantly bring in and comment on. But I think there was something out there that was worth our time that posed to me what I thought, anyway, was a very interesting question about the state of the Jacksonville Jaguars franchise. And listen, last week, we talked about all the rosiness. You know, we even have a short out there on the Duval Dive YouTube channel. Bing! By the way, like and subscribe and get the notifications on that. It will be worth your time. Remember, while it's still free, as Travis likes to say, right? But the punchline with all of that being the points made by an analyst that Travis and I both adore, Brett Coleman. He said some very interesting things about the state of the Jags organization. And I have the audio clip right here that I will play, and Travis and I will proceed from there.
They could still win 10 games. If we're looking at the schedule of the rebuild, this should be a team that we're talking about winning the Super Bowl this year. They're in that part of what should be a window.
Yeah.
But they're not. So when I say Trent Baalke's still in the hot seat, we're going to see what Houston and Indy do this year, and Trent's going to be probably facing a lot of blame for not capitalizing on the window that he used to have.
Okay, so I'll lead with this. First of all, the start of the video that we didn't play because Kyle didn't have enough time to figure out how to bleep something because he's not a good video editor. He said that Trent Baalke quote, what does it say? Trent Baalke bleep this up, right? I am not a Trent Baalke fan, right? I'm not a Jaguar fan, but I like to see them win because that means I cover more cool stuff. Mm-hmm. But I am a 49er fan, so I am in a unique position on this podcast to be twice affected by one Trent Baalke. No, I am not a fan. I put that bias out there on the table so everybody knows going in that Kyle's not being a homer or anything like that. You know, just as I went in on the Barking Browns group on YouTube there, you might have seen during this week, bing! You know, doing my best to show as much objectivity as possible. Mm-hmm. Great show, by the way. A good set of guys.
It really was.
Yeah. The whole concept here of blaming Baalke for things on this show, especially, and other places out there in Jaguar media that aren't nationals, that, you know, coin phrases and say completely silly things like Nick Reich and Emmanuel Acho. But the thing that makes me raise an eyebrow, where I feel compelled to defend Trent Baalke just a little bit, is the Super Bowl window concept. I don't think this franchise was that close to a Super Bowl. I don't think that's a viable statement. I don't think they're there yet. I don't think they've had enough offense. I think sins committed before Doug Peterson arrived completely crushed that, and I don't know how much of that you could put on Trent Baalke. Do you think that he's right to say that this should be a Super Bowl window for the Jags.
Yes. And this is weird that this is the weird time that we actually disagree, and I'm shocked that we disagree on this one.
Well, yeah, first of all, you must have burned that damn "this team makes me drink" t-shirt if you think this is true.
Well, it's wild because again, this team does make me drink, and this team still makes me drink, but now I'm just drinking a little bit less. I'm no longer in AA classes, and now I'm just like I'm questioning my life decisions. Like I'm not great. I'm just not great yet, but it's better.
You're drinking in moderation now. See, there you go.
Yeah. So the weirder part about this is the fact that this is what Brett Coleman just said is basically what I've been saying every time I say the phrase, "Is it too little, too late?" when I refer to the Jaguars, and you've probably heard me say that this offseason.
I have
double digit times, right?
Right.
Like
you always tend to say it late in the show, so I can't but why? You even mentioned like a must-win season upcoming, and I said, you could even hear it in the short when you say it on the Duval Dive YouTube.
You're like, really? I'm like, like
you noticed that? Okay,
I noticed it. No, but this is what I mean. So I'm happy someone else finally said it, maybe in a longer form way, so we can actually just dig into it. I've always had that belief that yes, you should have that incremental improvement towards the goal of being a consistent Super Bowl, an opportunity to at least show up in the Super Bowl. Maybe like this, like the 49ers actually. Like they may not be in the Super Bowl every year, but they have the chance walking into the season. That kind of a roster, that kind of an organization, basically. That's the goal in whole. Trent had that opportunity going into the 2023 offseason. He stood pat because he felt like he was there. And that's where I felt like he lost any, I won't say call momentum because, I don't really believe in that, but he lost the edge that he had on the rest of the conference who did get better, even if it's incrementally. Whereas the Jaguars at best stayed pat, in reality kind of got worse because now they had to spend the next offseason filling some of the holes that should have been filled the previous season. And now they're going to be in the middle of a dogfight when in reality they should have been in the spot now where they're taking an additional step forward, getting better at those spots that they were already kind of good at, but now they're just trying to be great at. Because now you have the chance of those luxury picks, I'm truly picking BPA to make this team incredible. We're not there because we screwed up last offseason. So now everything is reactionary to last season instead of just focusing on the future and getting better from this point moving forward.
Okay, so that's interesting. You've made that point, and we've agreed with that point, but I don't see Super Bowl window from this group. And let me tell you where I come from on that. First of all, if you wish, by the way, you made the point off air. I want to add it here because I think it's relevant to what we're both saying, is that Shad Khan has shown that he is among, if not the most patient owners.
Yes.
Or disconnected, depending on your point of view, right? There are others out there on shows you have even guested on. Shouts to our guy T Wiggs, Locked on Jaguars. Excellent time if you have time done listening to this one. Check that one out for sure. But the concept that he kind of is aloof and doesn't necessarily have a day-to-day guy running the show, right, has been said too. So whether you think he's patient or disconnected, I don't think it's of little consequence, Winch, for the point we're making. The point is people are given rope, right?
Yes.
100% agreed on that. If you want to blame Urban Meyer on Trent Baalke, cool. Okay. To fire him for that now seems late, but the thing in my mind that keeps the Jags out of the Super Bowl window, granted, the point you made about last offseason, bruh, I was complaining about things that you were, in some cases before you were, and I needed to wear the double X version of the "this team makes me drink" shirt without being a fan. Okay. And I have gone off on this show about what some of those draft choices were and how there is a world where Joey Pointer Jr. is reunited with his dad instead of playing on a ancient rival of the Steelers and the Jaguars. We've been with T Wiggs actually on this show, ironically. Anyways, so but to say that they were a Super Bowl team, that they were a team that could get past the Chiefs and make it to the Super Bowl, I'm not there. Now, granted,
Man, we have the tape that shows us they could have gotten past the Chiefs just in 2022.
that will right was that the Chiefs at their best at the end of the season? Did that same Kansas City team take the field in week 2 that did in the postseason?
Oh, no. I'm not talking about 2023. I'm talking about in the playoffs in 2022. If Jamal Agnew does not fumble that ball, I think everyone in Duval County believed that the Jaguars are going to win that game.
Oh,
if
so
Jamal Agnew doesn't fumble in the last 3 minutes.
Okay, so you're saying that play is as notorious, albeit not because of a ref mistake, as the Miles Jackson was. Right.
Correct.
That's
I am saying that they win that game in Kansas City. Kansas City's reeling at that point. They win that game if they score in that series. That becomes the Ravens game. That becomes the Cowboys game. That becomes the Chargers game. Like that becomes just one of the games in that list of games where the Jaguars has become this unstoppable ball who started rolling and it just became a mess for anybody to get in the way of. Like that's what that becomes in my personal opinion.
So whether it's the Agnew fumble or Chad Henne's revenge, either way, you feel like the Jags had a real shot at winning that game. I'm not here to diss that. That's a great thing by you. Where I live is, gosh, see, not that's interesting.
I knew that would get you. But no, that's a Super Bowl possibility right there. Even if it's not a win, let's say that's the Cincinnati Bengals going to the Super Bowl and losing. You know what I mean? Like that. Let's say that's just that same situation. Then you have the Jaguars going into this season, feeling a little bit better about where they are, but also probably being more aggressive to try to close any of those opportunities.
So wait a minute. Actually, okay, hold on. Let me flesh that out with you. Because so that the 2022 is the year that the Chiefs beat the Eagles eventually in the Super Bowl that season, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what you're telling me is Jags win that game. Assuming they go on to the Super Bowl, they would have the opportunity to get revenge on the Eagles,
who they lost to in week.
Who they lost to earlier in that season with a former Eagles coach. Now, granted, I don't know that the Jags defense would have been able to stop Jalen Hurts with the game he had that night against the Chiefs, but maybe so. I don't know. But that would have been a hell of a storyline. I will grant you that.
Right. And win or lose, I think the Jaguars now have confidence going into that next season that they're going to push for a better team. Like it was either for the Jaguars to be aggressive going into the 2023 offseason, it was going to have to be one of two things. It was going to have to be an explosion where they didn't make the playoffs at the end of the season and they just knew that they just needed to do way better, or crumbling at the end of the season, basically. Or it was going to have to be, hey, we went all the way there. And some of these things we just know are obvious. Like we just got demolished by this defensive front in Philadelphia and we got to revamp the offensive line or whatever it may be. Or they just played man-to-man defense and we just struggled like we did in the first half against the Chargers. So something like that. And then you go into the next season. All right, we see the game plan. Let's infuse a lot of money. Let's infuse a lot of resources into these areas and we're going to get this thing better. But because they did just good enough to not make it past the Chiefs, they stood pat. They were like, well, we were close, we're good, let's keep doing things the way that we're doing it. And it was literally the worst thing that could have been done at that time. It was great for us Jags fans to see it, but it was also worse from the Trent Baalke perspective of what do we do now? And that's where it sucked, unfortunately.
Because and listen, I know it's the popular thing to do to blame Trent Baalke for Calvin Ridley. I'm not there. I know there are those that can that have put what's it called? Josh Allen's extension, air quotes, taking so long at his feet. I'm not there either.
We had a whole podcast on that one. After the extension took place, and I fully understand your point. Hey, there was some gamesmanship as far as the representation for Josh Allen.
Gamesmanship, it was shenanigans, Travis.
On their side to make sure that he gets the most money as they should. That's literally their job as an agent, to get their client paid. But
hey, if you'd rather catch passes from Will Levis that bad for that cheddar, you do it, Calvin Ridley. We're not dissing you. We just don't think your career is going to go quite as well now. That's all.
Hey, it's the man's last paycheck. I do understand it. Get that money, man. Legend at the bank. Um,
I,
but
I,
all,
I suddenly get the post credits from Dave Chappelle show. I'm red.
mm. But yeah, but all that to say, yeah, it's not everything can't be put on Trent Baalke's plate because obviously everything is not up to him. There's too many guys involved. There's a whole team of individuals who share some responsibility. There's obviously Coach Peterson and Press Taylor who call plays, who install the offense and everything else. There's some blame to be said on the field. There's some blame to be in the coaching staff. But the main blame, as far as if we're talking the Brett Coleman quote of the Super Bowl window and not incrementally getting better versus being reactionary to what everyone else in the conference is doing, that solely and specifically falls on the shoes of Trent Baalke at his feet, because that is him becoming too content last offseason. And now the fact that the Texans have that quarterback, that they have taken super aggressive steps to make sure that they are instead the Cinderella of the AFC South, and that the Jaguars are basically trying to react to who they are versus the Jaguars saying, this is our identity, this is who we are, and you're going to have to react to us. Instead, we're reacting to them, and that is a different scenario. That is a different stance from us.
And to be clear, I know he mentions the Colts. Listen, and this is no disrespect to the Colts. I'm an Anthony Richardson guy. I was stoked that they picked him over Levis. I think he has the opportunity to be a franchise guy eventually, like Matt Stafford was for the Lions, in that he eventually took them to their first playoff win since, did Barry Sanders win a playoff game with him? I don't remember now. Punchline's this, though. Until he makes it at least half a season on his feet, I am not taking the Colts seriously. If I am going to do the same thing with Kirk Cousins and Aaron Charles Rodgers, I have to be aware that it's going to possibly take more than one offseason to get Anthony Richardson out of his injury-causing ways. I think he's a good quarterback. I think he has great potential. But I think for him to survive, you need what Atlanta needed with Michael Vick. You need a Matt Schaub, and they're hoping Joe Flacco is that. But
I don't believe that. But
yeah, well, right, and that's fine. If they have that, it's a poor man's version, 1,000,000,000% accurate. I agree with you. Being said, somebody on this panel is talking about the Texans' evolution, while also pointing out the vastness of the possibility of the sophomore slump from C.J. Stroud.
Correct.
So, again,
one's team building and one's outcome. Just to be clear on what I mean.
I'm glad you said that, because another thing that would have affected outcome, no matter how well you built the team, which we both agree, Trent Baalke has plenty of misses. If he did everything right, the injuries that impacted the Jags as such would have still put a baseball through that window of Super Bowl prowess that we're talking about. Don't you agree?
I do agree, but the Jaguars would have more likely than not. I mean, we truly are talking about a one-game difference. They more likely than not would have been at least in the playoffs. And the main goal, and I've said this on multiple occasions, the main goal from my perspective is the same goal that I will say I've heard multiple GMs say. The organization's first goal is to consistently be a playoff team. Full stop. Your first goal ever is going to be become the Pittsburgh Steelers, become the Kansas City Chiefs, become
the Steelers is a great answer.
The Steelers are great. Yeah, most of those teams in that conference, we'll just say, just become the teams that are consistently in the playoffs. If you can do that, you can give yourself a fighting chance of becoming a consistent Super Bowl appearance. That's the goal. So if your Jaguars can consistently just become that playoff contender, even if you don't win the Super Bowl, that is a great starting point. That is a great launching point for your organization to become, the Kansas City Chiefs or the old Andy Reid Philadelphia Eagles. Like, you can at least become an above average, consistent team who gives yourself a puncher's chance of making it to a Super Bowl every so often. That's the starting goal. That's where I was with the Jaguars. So for you to take that step back because you got lazy or because you got content, nah, man, we ain't having that.
And what's interesting, and I think what the point of getting content is, and it's funny, I've heard T. Wiggs and others say the same, buddy. This is not me dissing that school of thought, but what's interesting is 10 of 11 seasons, 6 wins or less, previous to Doug Peterson, and now the question is, why not Super Bowl window? And I'm not saying that to slam you, Travis, or
Yeah.
that outlook, but starting to ask those questions, to start to come in with that expectation of, hey, this is great and all, but you know what that is, Travis, and probably, in my opinion, the most valuable thing and why you can't fire Trent Baalke just yet is culture change. And now that's done, and now that's happening. Now, do you and I both think that has more to do with Tug Peterson than and Trent Baalke? Absolutely. Right? Look at what happened to culture with Trent once Trent Baalke got rid of Jim Harbaugh, who's now back in the NFL as a national friggin' champion. Thanks for that. But
Fair. Good
you
point.
know, but I think if he's on the hot seat, he won't be. Here's what I'll declare: he won't be fired heading into 25. If he is cut,
Oh, of course not.
it would be in 26.
I believe if he is cut, it would be after 25 draft. Because
Okay,
most of the time, most of the time when these GMs get cut, they don't get cut before the draft and then have the new GM have to come in and immediately start trying to do the work that other teams have had a full literal season to kind of scout these players, to build their own staff and everything else. It becomes chaos. So normally you see these GMs are let go after the draft, and the timing seems weird to fans. They're like, well, wait a minute, you just let this guy make his last draft, it wouldn't probably knowing that he's kind of out of the paint. Like that happened with Dave Caldwell. Like they let him go. You know what I mean? Like he's after he fails this draft, and it's like, wait a minute, like don't let him get this terrible last draft.
But they're still trying to do good too, because they're trying to put the resume together for the next job. So
sometimes,
you're not wrong.
Some of them.
I like that you added the sometimes. That's perfect. But
so that's the weirder point. So yeah, we're kind of on that same board. If you're entering your last year of a lame duck GM and maybe even a lame duck coach, depending on if he gets suspended or not, then that's the kind of conversations you're having. Hey, we're going to have to bring a new GM in and give him a full season to evaluate the coach and the rest of the staff and kind of see what they want to do. And that's kind of what happened in Tennessee. Honestly, they hired the new GM. He gets rid of the coach the next season, even though that was a great coach in Vrabel. And then they kind of just keep this thing moving with the more modern approach to the coaching staff. I'm not saying that that's in the future for Doug Peterson, because I actually generally like him as a coach, and same thing with Ryan Nielsen. But nevertheless, I'm just speaking from the GM side. That is the general game plan.
So with all that in mind, we talk about futures and all of this and outcomes. Trevor Lawrence obviously is going to be a big part of that. And the conversation continues, probably to a level of dumb out there in the national media, about how Trevor Lawrence, air quotes, doesn't deserve his extension. First of all, we pointed out, I think it was last week, 2 weeks ago, I forget which, Travis, that if you don't like that from Trevor Lawrence, please have more energy with the same for Jared Goff and Kirk Cousins, please, and thank you.
Correct.
AP, we have people out here saying some enormously stupid stuff, but you took to bigcatcountry.com and pointed out a high level of the dumb. And listen, man, don't give away the whole article, because we do want people to go to Big Cat Country or check out your socials and all that other stuff. But give us a synopsis here that kind of goes along with this visual story that's been put together by the NFL Clips Guy YouTube channel here to kind of accommodate what you're doing here. But yeah, walk us through, give us a high level of that, buddy.
Gotcha. So for my overall argument is that the NFL national guys don't watch tape. So I wanted to force feed them some tape, so they will actually have to see the interceptions, the 14 interceptions from Trevor Lawrence in 2023. Like you see this one, it was a perfect pass to Tank Bigsby that bounced off of his face mask 4 yards upfield, and now it's an interception.
Tank Bigsby can't hold on to the ball, by the way.
Right. So we're going to go through literally every single interception from Trevor Lawrence, and then also give context to it. The fact that he wore a knee brace through week 6 to week 15 of the season because he had a knee injury in week 6. And before the play where he can no longer run with an offensive line who has interior pressure problems. So we're seeing him now. He's not only not scrambling, but he's also making he's had a few bad picks. This was probably his worst pick of the season. And we are in week 8. So before any of the injuries, he's had 2 bad plays, but somehow he already has 4 interceptions. Half of his interceptions at this point in the season are just based on bad decisions, and 2 based on frankly bad supporting cast.
Yeah,
And going through it again, he just had the interception, another interception off a tip ball off of his running back's hands. I think that was again Tank Bixby.
certainly was.
Yes, and we're gonna keep the ball rolling. Like again, he's getting hit while he throws the ball in the San Francisco game when they're down. And this one, this was the Evan Ingram in interception because it was basically defensive pass interference that the refs missed, and
Yeah.
they didn't call it. Again, we are 7 weeks in, and more than half of the interceptions have nothing to do with Trevor Lawrence. And then he suffers the high ankle sprain. Again, another issue where he can no longer run. We just keep this thing moving. Like again, I don't have to speak for it because this tape speaks for itself. You have a miscommunication between he and Zay Jones where Zay runs a dig route and he throws a post route. Whose fault is that? Trevor's not practicing. We have no idea. Like he's only practicing 1 day a week 1 day a week over the next 5 weeks. Whose fault is what? Like, and that's the part that really stinks. So at the end of all of this, we end up having 14 interceptions with Trevor having three moderately serious injuries throughout the season. And at the end of the day, 4 INTs actually on Lawrence. As we know objectively, this is Trevor Lawrence's fault. 6 interceptions from tight end or wide receiver miscommunications, and 4 interceptions off dropped and tipped passes. And everybody's saying, hey, man, this dude has a turnover problem. And I'm like, I mean, does he in 2023? Did he in the last half of 2022? Like, I don't know that that's true. I think that he's getting 4 to 5 actual interceptions that are his fault. And everything else is just this bad surrounding cast that's around him, which takes us back to the roster management. That takes us back to the Trent Baalke conversation of what is happening around him. And that's kind of where I am, and that's where I land. Before his ankle injury in 2023, they were 8-4, and they ended up going 0-4 after his ankle injury. Like that's the drastic fall off at the end of the season where he ends up getting 7 of those INTs after he can no longer run. And this is after he already had a knee injury and everything else, like before in the season. So this has been a rough season. Obviously, with injuries, it was a rough season with pass protection, and it was a rough season even with the fumbles. Because out of his first 6 fumbles of 2023, only one of them was actually his fault. Mistimed snaps over his head, failed lateral, etc. But we're still talking about him having a turnover problem because of the Urban Meyer year, basically. So take a look at the article on BigCatCountry.com. I mean, it's a full deep breakdown when we talk about all of this and more. Maybe the fact that the Jaguars might have a problem recovering fumbles. Again, that has nothing to do with Trevor Lawrence. And I'm talking all fumbles, tight ends, wide receivers, and running backs. Take a look, man.
And by the way, you mentioned 0-4 to close the season. Obviously that is excluding the Panthers game.
Right.
I wouldn't
play.
Correct. Lawrence didn't play AB. There was so much running attack in that game. Why would you include it, even if he did? I mean, that's kind of rough. So, yeah. No, I think there's a lot of there. We're coming up, of course, to the end here too. But I would be remiss if I didn't get some sort of reaction from you surrounding the stadium approval and the schedule coming up. Next 2 seasons, of course, guaranteed to be as normal at Everbank in the Duval proper, so to speak. Then a reduced audience in 26 as construction begins, a relocation year in 27, and then in 2028 the dream is realized. There's already even a hype video that the Jags have put with Tony Pacelli narrating, which I did enjoy way more than I should have as a non-Jaguar fan. But yeah, tell me about the stadium and what it means to you as a member of the Duval Devout.
No, man, it's awesome. Like, obviously, like the fact that Jaguars can get away from all of those national media and ignorant conversations from
you Jason Knockett for
man, yes. And he's not the only one, though. I mean, anybody with fantasy football in the title, anybody who just doesn't pay attention to the Jaguars, they're all saying it. And at the end of the day, it was never warranted. Jaguars are never moving to a different, city, moving to a different state, definitely not moving to a different country. And finally, we can get rid of that stigma and just talk about football and pay attention to the team. Actually, I don't know, watch the tape, the whole thing we've been saying this whole episode.
Whoa.
But congratulations to the Duval County. Congratulations to Jacksonville. Congratulations to all the city council members, other than that one hater who had to vote against it. Congratulations everyone involved, including the mayor, in getting this done. A little disappointed that they did push off, at least for the moment, the $94 million that was supposed to go to the east side, but we'll see if that works out later, because I have my concerns about whether or not that's going to be approved later, because everyone's going to be excited about the stadium getting approved, provisionally at least. So we'll see what happens with that. But again, it's all the arrow's pointing up for Jacksonville. Let's revamp that downtown. Let's revamp that area, and hopefully let's have that opening day ceremony in 2028 with a Super Bowl ring presentation. Let's get something done that way. You know what I mean? Talking to you, Trent Baalke.
See, listen. If I knew you were going to pull that on this show, I would have had an Afro Man clip ready for you because you got hot. All right. Super Bowl rings, we're still doing it. Listen, you made a great point about 2022 because it was better than any of the other ones I hear, especially within there. Oh, the Texans and the Colts. Hold on. My man Travis Holmes is telling me I should expect regression from the Texans. Mm-hmm. I don't know about regressions in the win column. We'll see how that looks. But the Colts also, we mentioned, aren't a factor. But listen, man, come on. What Super Bowl? Man,
we're talking 2027. We're talking 3 years of incremental improvement. I think that's a reasonable expectation for a team that's already average to become above average.
See, you're usually more objective than this in general with your analysis. So I'm not making you out to be a homer, all right? But don't sit there and tell me that you're putting into the universe that they come to play here in Orlando at 2027. You're there to cover it at a shorter drive, and they achieve Super Bowl success doing it. Travis, stop it.
Yeah, I have that kind of confidence. No, that's not confidence. That's faith. I won't lie to you. Yeah, that's absolutely faith. And it may be blind faith, but it also could have something to do with, I don't know, Ben Johnson and Ryan Nielsen combination. Or it could, I don't know, man. Who knows what the future holds? We're talking so long in the future at that point, and then these guys may be here. They may not be. I won't tell that lie. But it's a hope. It's a hope and it's a prayer. There you go. It'll be dope.
I'm glad you changed it from confidence to faith, because I
can't even finish a sentence before you're like,
I was going to ask you the question. Right. What is faith if not super strong confidence?
I'll acknowledge it's blind confidence, but I'll take it. Yeah, man, because I'm about that life. I need those kind of storylines for Jacksonville. I think they deserve it.
So many members of the Duval Devout would probably appreciate you on that. I shan't front, Travis Holmes. And listen, I'm glad we went through it. I'm glad we turned through the extra stuff. I'm glad we brought in. We talked more about the direction of the franchise than I expected. That's okay though. At the end of the day, you got your ping for your awesome Trevor Lawrence article on BigCatCountry.com. I'm excited for the stadium in that, from one very simple form, the models, it looks pretty. So, I'm excited to walk in the building from that standpoint. And who knows, hopefully I will still be credentialed to do such at that point. That would be fascinating. But with all that in mind, listen, it's that time. Travis, tell the people where you can be found.
You can find me on all the socials, Travis D. Holmes. You can find my writings covering the Jacksonville Jaguars at bigcatcountry.com. Absolutely, please like and subscribe to the Duval Dive YouTube channel. I believe we're 3 weeks in existence there. Absolutely, listen to we have the Inside the Pigskin on Tuesdays. That's where we cover all NFL news, not just the Jaguars, but I always have my Jaguars tape to bring into it because I'm always going to represent. And you're listening now wherever you catch your podcasts. The Duval Dive, a Jaguars podcast, every Friday, 11 a.m. We appreciate you for logging in, for joining us.
And of course, I'm Kyle Nash, the student of the game. You can find me on Twitter, Instagram, and Threads at the SOTG. Find me on Facebook as the same, the student of the game. Check out my writings with Jaguars on SI. I was about to say Big Cat Country instead of so I'm like, if I'm thinking Jaguars, let's go to Jaguars and SI. Anyways, check out my ratings on Jaguars on SI, the Black and Gold Banneret, where we just had the reactions to the conference schedule in the Big 12 for basketball. That just dropped. So check out those on the Black and Gold Banneret YouTube channel. Bing! And of course, Duval Dive YouTube channel. You will see more there coming. So yes, please subscribe. We got a little bit of ground. We're just less than a month old, so still an infant on that front. So please help where you can to build that up. Coming soon, TikTok as well. We'll see how that works. But Of course, check out my work as well as the student of the game, 9 o'clock Eastern on Wednesday nights. And check out also the 3-point conversion, who will play this very episode on their iHeartRadio channel, as well as oldschool101.com from 12 to 2 on their sports block on Sunday. I think that's everything, Travis. We gave the people a little extra bonus action today because there was that much going on, and we could have gone so many more places. We will do which position group needs to get better next week. So look out for that. And even though I'm supposed to be in Greece a few weeks, I can tell you people, you're still going to get an opportunity to participate in the Duval dive. So for Travis Holmes, this is Kyle Nash, student of the game. Until next time, everybody, class dismissed.